This series contains themes of violence against women and child abuse. Listener discretion is advised. More than 40 years ago, two teenage girls disappeared from the beachside suburbs of southern Sydney. Elaine Johnson was 16, Kerry Ann Joel was 17. Gone without a trace. Never to be heard from again. For more than 4 decades, Elaine's family have searched in vain for answers. This is their story.
There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. Islands can be big and small. My love for you will never go away.
There is a police file now, but there wasn't, I don't believe.
I want to take you back to the year 2004. It's the year New South Wales Police made what Elaine's family believe is the first official contact they had with them about her disappearance.
I think she was missing with them, but not they. Well, saying that, she was always a missing person because she was reported, but they reckon she wasn't. There's no report of Elaine missing, but there's a report on Kerry. So the official report was never done. They didn't compile it. They didn't register.
The voice you just heard was Helen, Elaine's younger sister. She remembers when police first connected the dots that 2 girls were missing, not just one. As far as the family know, before then, police hadn't clocked that Elaine and Kerry's disappearances were likely connected. You see, Elaine was reported missing to Cronulla Police Station, while Kerry was reported missing to Miranda Police Station, 1 suburb over. Though to be fair, Helen says her family also hadn't made the connection back then.
They didn't even know the 2 girls had gone missing together, but saying that, we didn't even know that the 2 had gone missing together at first. We just knew Elaine had gone missing, and then we realised the 2 of them had gone missing.
That same year, in 2004, the New South Wales Police Missing Persons Unit handed information about Kerry's disappearance to senior officers based in the Shire. I've put in a request with New South Wales Police to speak to the officer who took over the information. I wanted to find out why he thinks Elaine and Kerry's disappearances weren't linked earlier, particularly given there's evidence to the contrary. What I mean by this is that while sifting through documents provided by Elaine's family, I noticed a photocopy of a page from a small spiral notepad that had both Elaine and Kerry's parents' Shire home phone numbers from back in the 1980s written on it, which suggests that Elaine and Kerry's family told police back in 1980 that the girls went missing together. I also really wanted his thoughts on Elaine's initial missing persons report, what was done, what wasn't, what was missed. I'm yet to hear back from New South Wales Police, so I asked Duncan McNabb what he thinks. As listeners know by now, Duncan was a detective with New South Wales Police during the 1980s and is now a successful crime author. Duncan wasn't involved in the case, so when he shares his thoughts, he's speaking as though police did already know both girls were missing around the same time.
I can't put myself in their heads back in the Shire back in those days, but there's a fair chance that the coppers would have looked at the 2 teenage girls, they run away together, and that's what it comes down to. And they'd be thinking, is it foul play? Probably not. It's 2 girls have decided to run away from home for reasons best known to themselves. They'll come in a couple of days or a couple of weeks when the money runs out. I mean, back in those days too, they might have pulled some money out of a passbook.
A passbook is a physical book to help people keep track of their money and spending. Some people do still use them today, but obviously they were a lot more popular before the internet.
Everyone had cash in their back pocket, even if it didn't get to the bank. So, I don't know the circumstances, but it would be reasonable to assume that they may have had some cash in their back pockets to keep them going for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And you would never formally see that money. It wouldn't, for example, go into a bank account. They just put it in their wallets. So you don't know. But I would imagine when 2 girls have gone missing simultaneously and they're both mates, the coppers would probably think they've done a runner. There might be a boy involved, for example, or they may have run off on an adventure or someone's promised them something. They'll come back in a few days. Let's see what happens.
Checks for the girls were made on the police missing persons databases across Australia: electoral rolls, Centrelink, birth, deaths and marriages, major Australian banks and Interpol, Medicare and the Australian Tax Office were also checked. There were no records of the girls from after they went missing. There might be a good reason for this. Official documents shared with me by Elaine's family show police checks made between 2004 and 2006 included searches under the wrong name. Checks were made for Elaine Johnson as well as Elaine Rockdale, though we don't know why. As well as the wrong name, checks were made with Elaine's wrong date of birth. Again, we don't know why. Official documents also show there were budget restraints on at least one search. It's not clear if this means not all of Elaine's searches were completed. As part of their inquiries, police also tracked down Helen and Wendy. They were called in to give statements in June 2005 about the searches they had carried out. They were told the statements would be used for a coronial inquest into the girls' disappearance and suspected deaths. That inquest happened in 2007. A coronial inquest, also known as an inquest, is a court hearing where the coroner is presented with evidence by police, which they then use to determine the date, place, and manner in which someone died. While family statements were taken, no friends were interviewed.
My mum and dad were sent a letter about it, but never told anything other.
Here's Helen again. Her father Clifford passed away in 2020, and for medical reasons, her mother isn't able to answer any questions about the case. So Helen is sharing her understanding of what happened.
So it was held behind closed doors, and then there was only one small, A5 or something piece of paper that I've showed you of the whole inquest.
With the handwritten note.
Yeah. And so then we waited and waited to see what information that they got that from. In 2010, I went there and I refused to leave.
What Helen is talking about here is what happened after the 2007 inquest. She, and to her knowledge, her parents were never contacted to be shown the findings. In 2010, 3 years after the inquest, Helen decided to go to the New South Wales Coroner's Court to find out why. She was given several documents with the court's findings on the case, as well as evidence it considered. One of those documents was a single sheet of paper with handwritten notes on it. Some of the notes had been crossed out. Here's Helen and myself attempting to read what was on the piece of paper.
Something, the time of evidence. What? Neither Miss Joel or Miss Johnson have been seen since they disappeared. Meanwhile, sometime around the end of December 79. Now have they accessed any... Wow, this is very fancy handwriting.
That's all I got given.
Okay.
Helen was told the document, the single piece of paper, was the inquest findings. Confused, she spoke with someone who worked at the court.
He said, "Did you get counsellors or anything?" And I said, "No." "Did anyone come to your place give you any of the findings from the coroners? Did you get anything?" And we said, "No." And he said, "But you're supposed to get all this information."
Helen was told to obtain a death certificate based on the coroner's single-page report, which claimed Elaine died in December 1979. Helen declined, as it made no sense to her. Elaine didn't disappear until the beginning of 1980, and there was no other supplied evidence, such as police statements from family or friends, to back up the single-page report.
Then they tried to say that's to do with probate within the 7 years and all that. And I'm like, but why December 1979? Where did you get that from?
Yeah, did they say anything?
No. It was like they'd done it to sweep it under the carpet to say they've done something, and then that was it.
The documents also said the Deputy State Coroner, who presided over the inquest, found there wasn't enough evidence to determine what happened to Elaine or Kerry. The case was returned to the officer in charge at Miranda Police Station. It wouldn't be until 2016 before the case was referred to the Homicide Squad after a second inquest. I've reached out to the New South Wales Coroner's Office to ask why the family was only given a single piece of paper and why it was held behind closed doors. I'm yet to hear back. A couple of months after Helen's 2010 visit to the coroner's court, 2 different detectives contacted her asking to meet. She was in for further frustration and shock.
We got a phone call saying that the detectives wanted to come to my mum and dad's place because they wanted to update the database on Elaine's profile. I went, oh, that's funny. I'm like, update the database. What can be different? When you go missing when you're 15 or 16 and you got blue eyes and blonde hair, your eyes are still blue and your hair's still blonde in 2010 or 11 or 12. It doesn't change unless you've seen them and you know that. And if you've seen them, they're no longer missing, are they? So I'm like, why do you need to update your database?
When the detectives arrived, they began a familiar line of questioning.
Anyway, so they went through a whole heap of questions saying, what colour hair, did she have this, did she have that? And I said, but you should already know that because you have the report when she went missing. Well, obviously they didn't have the report and they knew, but then they've waited from 1980 to 2010, which is 30 years before they're updating their database, which at least they are trying to do something about it.
The conversation then shifted dramatically.
But then they asked my dad, what colour's her pubic hair? My dad went into the bedroom and didn't come back out. And I'm like, that's a trick question. You're asking because if he knows the colour of her pubic hair, then he must have done something. And I thought, how dare you just come in? If you were investigating my dad, you should have said you're under investigation and you should have gone through the right things.
The detectives left the Johnson household soon after that question. They never took a statement from Clifford. His family don't know why. In 2015, police contacted Helen to inform her that they would be seeking statements from family and friends of Elaine and Kerry. The police action was sparked after a chance meeting in early 2014 between Helen and a New South Wales Police detective during one of her missing persons displays in Cronulla Mall. You'll hopefully remember in a previous episode where Joe spoke about how a man, who we've called Keith, shared information with Helen at a display. The detective told Helen he would help with Elaine's case. Helen was cautiously optimistic about the offer of assistance, though was somewhat alarmed when the senior detective stated he hadn't heard of the girl's case. Elaine's family firmly believe if they had not spoken to the detective in the mall that day, none of the police statements of family and friends would ever have happened. They also believe a second inquest into Elaine's case would not have taken place. Just as in 2004, checks for the girls were made on the police missing persons databases across Australia, electoral rolls, Centrelink, birth, deaths and marriages, and major Australian banks and Interpol. Medicare and the Australian Tax Office were also checked. Again, there were no records of the girls from after they went missing, with the family never being made aware of any formal investigations. From what the Johnson family understands, unlike in 1980 or 2004, in 2015, police started taking statements from Elaine and Kerry's friends. It was the first time any of them had spoken to police about the girls. The Johnson family hoped that one of Elaine's many friends would come forward with information that could crack the case. Some of those friends spoke to police, others declined.
I do believe some of them knew where they were after they went missing and had seen them around.
Here's Helen again.
But they're worried or something because it might look bad for them even though they've done nothing. But they were only teenagers, so it doesn't make sense to us. We can't work it out.
Helen's husband, Joe, agrees.
There's some people I know that sort of don't like to get involved, and especially where there's police or anything that might be a bit iffy, they just want to stand back. But if someone's a genuine friend, if I knew one of my friends was in trouble and I knew what had happened to them or anything that's really important, I'd be telling someone straight away. I wouldn't be waiting. I can't understand for a second why these people aren't just telling them. I know there might be the fear factor. They could still do it anonymously. They could drop a letter in the letterbox and send it to Helen and say, look, this is what I know. But they just, I really don't get it. I don't understand why people don't just speak up.
As well as taking statements from family and friends, this time police also followed up other leads. One of those leads had come through a year before, in June 2014. Crime Stoppers received a call from a person who gave information allegedly relating to the girls' disappearances and the site of a potential grave in Loftus. Loftus is a leafy, quiet suburb near the Royal National Park in southern Sydney and about 20 minutes from Cronulla. The information was from the owner of Gardner's Garage, located on the edge of the national park. He claimed he once saw what looked like a grave that had been dug out about 6 feet wide, some 300 metres, into the bush from his garage. He claimed a few days later he went back and the spot had been covered over. He said the hole was down a bush track past the garage, near an old house that has been since knocked down. He claimed it would have been impossible to dig a hole that large with a shovel and that machinery, like a digger, would have been needed. Police followed up with him about his claims. They described him as, at best, inconsistent. He died in 2020, so we can't clarify any of this with him. In March 2016, which was almost 2 years after the Crime Stoppers tip-off, detectives and cadaver dogs searched the area with a National Park ranger. They didn't find anything of interest. I've asked New South Wales Police why it took so long to do the search and have been told, as Elaine and Kerry's case is an ongoing investigation, they are unable to comment. On the 9th of August 2016, more than a year after police took statements from family and friends into Elaine and Kerry's disappearance, a second inquest was held. Elaine's family found it strange that further checks were made on the police database before the 2016 inquest, given, they believe, Elaine had never had an official police file when she was first reported missing, and police didn't connect that both Elaine and Kerry were missing. Helen and Wendy were sitting in court when their suspicions were confirmed that police, in 1980, hadn't bothered to create a missing persons file for Elaine, and then later claimed they'd lost it.
When the coroner's inquest was done, they asked Detective McNully, where's Elaine's police report? And they said missing. And she goes, what do you mean by missing? Do you mean it's on microfiche in archives? And they go, no, missing. She goes, why would it be missing? Why isn't it on microfiche? And no one could explain or give an answer. It was just, it's missing. And she was trying to get some clarification, what do you mean by that? And there was none.
Their relief at this long-awaited validation was short-lived because 3 simple words would turn this inquest into a media frenzy. Those words were strike, force, Fenwick. The detective told the inquest that Elaine and Kerry's disappearances were similar to the disappearances investigated by a 1998 strike force called Strike Force Fenwick. If you remember, Ivan Milat was a person of interest. Add to that, the same strike force investigated an area situated less than 10 minutes from the Jillaby Motocross Park, where the girls were said to have been shortly before they vanished. It was tenuous, but it was enough. The media made the connection and ran with it. Here are some of the headlines. Serial killer Ivan Milat is linked to the mysterious disappearance of 2 teenage girls who vanished 36 years ago. Did Ivan Milat murder missing girls? Ivan Milat, disappearance of teenage girls linked to Australia's worst serial killer. Ivan Milat linked to murder of 2 girls believed abducted from Jillaby. Were Elaine Johnson and Kerry Ann Joel killed by Ivan Milat? The string of headlines shocked the Johnson family both here and in the UK.
And then my auntie in England was horrified because and my mum and dad, their thinking might have happened, which they're not stupid. Dad always had the theory that he said to us after, that was one thing he did say, he liked to think that nothing happened to her.
Helen also feared that any link to Milat would make it easier for detectives to stop investigating her sister's case.
I said, I don't want them to just say that it was Ivan Milat, because as soon as you say that, it gets swept under the carpet. It could be because they hitchhiked, but there's no 100% evidence that it is them either. So by doing that, that makes it that's to shut the folder and move on.
Elaine's family were told the 2016 inquest would last for a number of days. That wasn't the case. It would take less than an hour. Ultimately, after hearing all the evidence presented by police, the then Deputy State Coroner, Mary Jerram, turned to the family of Elaine and Kerry in the court and addressed them directly. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I think we have to assume there must have been foul play." Deputy State Coroner Jerram then referred Elaine and Kerry's cases to the Unsolved Homicide Squad. And with that, a second inquest was over. The Johnson family are grateful to the 2 detectives that contacted them after the chance meeting in 2014 in Cronulla Mall. To a point. Helen said she had to call one of the detectives to find out what had happened after the second inquest. It was only then that she learned police had been inundated with information about the girls' case. But nothing came of it. Helen was told, despite the officers being, quote, swamped, end quote, with information, they said nothing of the information was relevant. Due to the police not looking into the case for 35 years, Helen believes it would be beneficial to have access to this information to determine its relevance.
He did more than others, but really, from this point on, what has been done, really?
Here's Helen.
Once the coroner was done, they got so much intel come through and they sift through it all, but everything wasn't relevant.
So what's happened in the 9 years since the second inquest sent Elaine and Kerry's cases to the Unsolved Homicide Squad? Helen has never heard from any police officer. She now has little faith in the police system as a whole, even though she understands the restraints. Helen has had her own experience, as historically she visited 5 police stations 2 weeks apart, inquiring about Elaine's file. Each time she was told it didn't exist. She's also made multiple applications to the New South Wales Coroner's Office for the official transcripts from both inquests. The first request was the 2nd of February 2018. She made another request on January 20, 2025. She followed up her January 2025 request on the 28th of August 2025 and was told, quote, "These things take time," end quote. It's been 5.5 years since her first request. Helen and Wendy have continued their own search, both in person and online, through a Facebook group Helen created, Help Find Elaine Johnson. Since the inquest, Helen has continued to follow up every lead that came in. Even with a full-time job and family, she didn't stop. Then, on the June long weekend of 2024, she received a tip-off that changed everything, one that put this podcast on an immediate and indefinite pause. Next week, on Out from the Cold, searching for Elaine.
There's a thread which can be traced all the way back from the time that, or even before they went missing, to how they've ended up at this property, and that should be looked into.
Searching for Elaine is a series from Out from the Cold, part of Happy Tuesday Productions. A special thanks to Helen and Wendy and the extended Johnson Cooper family for their time and trust. Thanks also to the Joel family, Elaine and Kerry's friends, and anyone who helped with information about the girls. It all counts. If you have information about Elaine Johnson or Kerry and Joel, you can get in touch at Help Find Elaine Johnson on social media or contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. This episode was produced by me, Kate Cartchaw, and Sally Spicer. Editing by Dan McHugh and Matt Haywood. Artwork by Nick Watts.
There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. There's a hole in my heart the size